All right. I am so excited. My name is Preston Pollard, and welcome to the Hope Ownership Dialogue. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And in this session, you are going to hear from some heavy hitters in the housing market. So if I were you, I would get your pen and notepad and get ready because they're going to give us some valuable information. So without further ado, can I please have my panelists introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Rice. I'm the president and CEO of the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Good afternoon. I am Terry Lee, and I'm the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Housing Authority for the City of Atlanta.
Good afternoon. My name is Tiffany Cobb, and I'm the Deputy Regional Administrator for HUD Southeast Region.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lester Watt, and I'm employee of Operation Hope. I'm also a licensed HUD counselor and homeownership coach.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And for the audience, don't let them fool you. Each of them probably have 20 to 30 years of experience, so a total probably 100 years. So I'm telling y'all, they're going to give us some great advice and information today. And I would like to say also for the audience, if you have anything that you would like to add, anything like just put everything in the chat. That's why I pretty want to let you know, put everything into the chat. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A. So to start things off, can each of you share how you got started in the housing and community development space and what inspired you to pursue this path?
Sure, Preston, I can kick things off. It really feels like I've been doing this work since I was a child. I am a child of the civil rights era. But I think what really stands out for me is when I was 15 years old, I was a part of a program called Upward Bound. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of that program. But when I was 15, I got an internship with an organization in Ohio called the Toledo Fair Housing Center. And I think that's where the housing bug really bit me. Fair housing agencies have a community development component, but really at their core, they are civil rights agencies investigating housing discrimination and trying to expand equitable housing opportunities for people. So I was just really fascinated to learn when I was 15 years old that you could actually conduct a civil rights investigation, ferret out violations of our nation's civil rights laws, and then use remedies to actually help people gain access to fair housing and lending opportunities. So I was bit by the bug when I was 15 years old, and I've been doing this work ever since.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I also went to Upward Bound, so it definitely changed my life as well. Would anybody else like to speak on that?
Yeah, I will. Similar to Lisa, first of all, I'm also an Upward Bound alum. And I will tell you the foundation and the opportunity that was afforded to me in the small town of Grambling, Louisiana, is what really set the trajectory of my career. Similar to Lisa as well, this work for me started as a child. Why I didn't understand it was the housing foundation, it was really about how do I help people. My mom often tells the story how all of my neighbors on our street were elderly at the time, how I would visit them, make sure that I could help them with any chores or any things that they needed, just from a day-to-day life perspective. As I continued to grow in my community, and more importantly, even as I accelerated from an education process, housing became really something that I didn't necessarily think I would go into, but it really kept being my life's calling. And I think it goes back to just understanding, for me, I want to help people. And one of the best ways to help us, especially people of color, and to even ensure our families an opportunity to gain generational wealth, is really using housing as that bedrock or foundation.
Wow, that was beautifully said. I think it's so important that you said service. And so I think
Yeah,
that ties into everything that you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, who wants to
absolutely.
add to that next?
I'll go. I started at HUD as an intern while at Howard University. And my dad also worked at HUD at the time in Denver, Colorado. And my mom, she was over the community planning and workforce development for the city of Gary. So as long as I can remember, public service has been ingrained in me by my parents.
Mhm.
But even as a child, I was very conscious of the fact that I had a stable place to call home, and was blessed enough to do so because I had friends and families who did not. And I witnessed the negative impact that had, on their lives. Now, your circumstances, don't define you nor determine, your future, but it can definitely hinder your success if you allow them to. And I did witness that as a young child. So HUD's mission, providing affordable housing, safe and decent housing is something that I am passionate about. I am closely aligned to. I've been at HUD for 14 years now, and 12 of those have been in headquarters working on policy. But I realize you can't work on policy without talking to the people that's actually doing the work and without talking to the residents and the communities that you are creating this policy for. So in this role, it's been my goal to serve as a liaison between our stakeholders and between the powers that be, so to speak, so we can inform policy, be an advocate for those underserved communities, and ensure that HUD funding is actually getting to the people that it needs to get to.
Wow, that was great. And it's so awesome to hear you even talk about your family and all the things that you learned. And so keep up the great work. All right, Mr.
Yeah, Preston, you mentioned the 20 plus years of service in banking. It has been that for me in multiple roles, also in banking. But one that I really, really cherish was my role as a mortgage lender, right? And I was providing funds for folks to go out, become homeowners, and then, as was mentioned earlier, to start building that generational wealth. As a renter, you're going to be building wealth. You're just going to be building it for your landlord, and that's why I love the idea of what we do here at Operation Hope in helping folks become homeowners so that they can build wealth for themselves. So over 20 years in banking, mortgage lending probably was one of my best, one of the best gigs I've ever had. Second to what I do right now at Operation Hope.
Wow. Well, thanks so much for sharing. And you're building wealth in me right now and everybody who's listening. So I want to start off with the next question for Lisa. As the president and CEO of the National Fair Housing, can you share the current state of the housing market and what are the new opportunities available for anyone aspiring to be a homeowner today?
Preston, sure. Thank you for that question. I don't think that I'm going to be shedding any light for folks here today. We are in the midst of a fair and affordable housing crisis in the United States. Our nation needs roughly 7 million new affordable housing units for rent and purchase. We stopped building affordable housing units essentially when we experienced the macroeconomic foreclosure and financial crisis back in 2008, and we have not caught up. So we are very, very far behind, and I know that people are feeling that crunch every single day as rental housing costs and costs for homes for purchase have far outclipped and outpaced people's salaries. Also, unfortunately, Preston, we are seeing that housing discrimination complaints are on the rise. Last year, for example, for the third year in a row, the number of recorded housing discrimination complaints hit a record high. Um, we saw a 66% increase year over year in the number of harassment complaints. That means people being harassed where they live in their residential units. Saw a 471, yes, I said 471% increase in the number of harassment complaints based on color, a 115% increase in the number of harassment complaints based on race. So, unfortunately, as the housing market is more and more constricted, we are seeing elevated acts of housing discrimination. And so it's important for people to know that they can go to their local fair housing organizations when they face discrimination. We work very closely with HUD. HUD is our partner in enforcing the nation's fair housing law. So if you're looking for a resource, you can either go to our website at nationalfairhousing.org, or you can go to HUD's website and just type in the search engine, fair housing organizations, to get help. But I do want to lift up, on a positive note, two new advances that we've been working on at the National Fair Housing Alliance. One is our first generation homebuyer programs. These are programs for people who are the first in their family to become a homeowner. So we're growing the number of agencies that are sponsoring these types of programs. They provide significant assistance for down payment and closing costs. And then the second is special purpose credit programs. We have a number of lenders: JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, TD Bank, First Citizens Bank, Rocket Mortgage. They're just a litany of lenders that we have been working with to establish these specifically designed lending programs for underserved markets. And they also have special features like better underwriting guidelines and down payment and closing cost assistance. And I can talk more about how to access those programs a little bit later on in the discussion.
Thank you so much. With so much going on in the housing market, I know you had some of the bad things that are going on, but then I love how you also said some of the positive things that are going on as well. So thank you, thank you so much. The next question is for Miss Lee Terry here. As the president and CEO of Atlanta Housing, what are the main barriers to home ownership today, and how can they be overcome at the local level?
Yeah, so I would tell you that even as the president and CEO of Atlanta Housing, I would be remiss if I didn't state that we're in a global housing crisis, and across the world is just a lack of housing availability that's being attainable for persons of limited need, and that's from a rental standpoint as well as a home ownership standpoint. When it comes to home ownership, if you just go back prior to the pandemic, we were at our lowest interest rates, and that actually increased the buying of individuals who are low income. What we're seeing now is that supply is definitely not keeping up with demand. Interest rates, even today, interest rates are at about 7%. That decreases the amount of buying power. And then we're also seeing, quite honestly, the fact that our affordable buyers are having to compete, in some cases, with investors that have ready cash available. And again, it just makes constraint. One of the things that we have been intentional about as a housing authority, and keep in mind, as a housing authority, mandate every day is to wake up and serve individuals to make sure that they have access to housing resources. And so when we think about how do we best do that and also create a pathway for families to gain generational wealth, one of the best that we have is our down payment assistance program. Over the course of about 19 years, we've been able to touch close to 2,000 families, investing right around $30 million in down payment assistance to really be a lifeline to help individuals gain an opportunity for not just home ownership, but creating generational wealth for their families. In this that we're in, this environment that we're in, really critical that down payment assistance and any type of subsidy assistance is required. If you think about median income, because we are a federally regulated agency, when you think about the median income in Atlanta, it's about $86,000. And if we go with the typical formula that a family can afford 3 times their income, we're looking at a family that we serve being able to afford no more than $258,000 for a purchase price. We know that in Atlanta, as well as other places in this country, purchase prices are upwards of $350,000. And so, in order to be able to achieve the dream of home ownership, we have to make sure that we have not just down payment assistance through our program, but that we also work creatively and innovatively to layer other subsidy solutions to be able to help people achieve that dream.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, the role of down payment assistance, especially with right now, as even I have looked at property in a lot of real estate, people are buying up a lot of different things. So thank you so much for just sharing your wisdom. That is so great. So the next question I have is for Tiffany. From a HUD perspective, how does home ownership impact the broader community? And why is it crucial to support first-time homebuyers?
Yeah, thank you. So for middle class Americans, homeownership is a key component of their family's net worth, and it's also a key factor to building generational wealth and having something you can pass down to your children or other family. And further, being a homeowner also creates a sense of belonging. It's a community. It increases civic engagement, and not saying that you can't experience these things as a renter, but it's just a different sense of responsibility. And there's nothing wrong with renting, let me just say that. And the majority of homeowners had to rent at some points in their lives, including myself. However, the big drawback about renting to me is you're not building equity or establishing that financial security. And I know Lester mentioned that as well. And you're just paying someone else's mortgage or putting money in someone else's pockets. And I know even John Hope Bryant, who owns several single family homes and rents, also discourages about being a lifelong renter. So in that sense, at HUD, as we celebrate our 90th anniversary of FHA, we are focused and intentional about supporting first-time home buyers. FHA is one of the largest mortgage insurers in the world. We serve first-time home buyers, low and moderate income individuals and families, and communities of color at a disproportionate rate compared to other participants in the housing finance market. So we are conscious also that there is a racial homeownership gap due to barriers and systemic issues that have persisted for decades, and several of which FHA contributed to, such as redlining and racial gaps in appraisals. And in the first quarter of 2024, this year, the Black homeownership rate was 45% compared to 74% for white Americans. And during that same period, the Hispanic homeownership rate was 49%. So we want to close that homeownership gap for Black and brown individuals, and we are working to right the wrongs of the past by focusing on amending policies and removing barriers to increase the supply of affordable housing, enable access to mortgage credit, as well as help current homeowners who may be struggling avoid foreclosure and keep their home. So that's what we're focused on at HUD.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I remember John Hope Bryant said the quickest way to be a millionaire is home ownership. So it is definitely so important. I'm just excited that we're all, just having this conversation, because there's been so much information that sometimes we don't know about. And right now, people are getting to know this valuable information. So thank you all for sharing. My next question is for Lester. Can you discuss the role of Operation Hope in advancing for home ownership, and what specific programs and services does Operation Hope offer to assist individuals in achieving home ownership?
Sure. Thanks, Preston. As Tiffany so eloquently put, HUD actually requires, in most cases, for you to take what's called a first-time homebuyers workshop and achieve and get that certificate if you qualify for that down payment assistance. So that's one of the programs that Operation Hope actually offers to help folks that want to become homeowners. And then we've got our home ownership program, basically that takes them through that process to get them ready for home ownership. And then finally, there are clients that come to us that are not quite ready because they've got credit issues. And so we've got our credit and money management program that we use and take those clients through to help them to get ready to become a homeowner. So that's kind of our goal and our role and mission in helping folks to become homeowners.
That is beautiful. I hope everyone is listening right now. Please take the Operation Hope class. And if he just said, if your credit is messed up, make sure you join that class, because as I know for sure, credit is so important. So make sure your credit is looking good. All right. For the next question here, this is for Lisa, Terry, and Tiffany. What resources can people tap into at your organization to support their home ownership journeys? And are there any new programs or grants that individuals should be aware of?
So I'm going to go back to two programs that I referenced earlier, Preston. One is our first generation homebuyer programs, and I place an emphasis on generation because first generation homebuyer programs are distinctly different from first-time homebuyer programs. First-generation homebuyer programs have more of an equity focus, because we're highlighting the universe of our community that historically have not had access to homeownership opportunities. And so I do want to point out that there are a bevy of organizations that we are helping to fund, but also other organizations and foundations throughout the nation. They're also funding organizations to create and launch first generation home buyer programs. I will highlight that in the Atlanta area, we just formed a new partnership with the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership, and we are supporting and funding the launch of their new first generation home buyer program. And so if folks who are in the Atlanta region should reach out to the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership and ask about that opportunity. That down payment assistance is stackable, and that's a really important key. And then the second thing I'll hone in on again is our special purpose credit programs. So please do visit our special purpose credit program toolkit. That's spcptoolkit.com. And if you click on the market examples of SPCP's link, you'll see a list of all of the financial institutions, not all, let me take that back. Many of the financial institutions that have special purpose credit programs. So do click on that link. Again, the down payment assistance that you get from those programs is stackable as well. So you can stack it with other assistance programs and really get more bang for the buck. And that gives you more buying power to be able to get an affordable home.
Thank you so much for dropping that wisdom. I told y'all they ain't playing. They are not playing today. So make sure you are writing this stuff down, taking notes, because this is some powerful stuff. Now, my next question is for everyone. What are your long-term goals for improving home ownership rates and ensuring equitable access to housing?
So I'll take it first, Preston. This work is personal for me, and it's personal because my mom achieved her dream of home ownership, quite honestly, through the provision or receiving rather a federal subsidy to buy her first home when I was 11 years old. And so I understand what it means when you give a child a chance. And when a child does not have the opportunity, when a child doesn't have to worry about where they're going to lay their head at night and the label of stability. And so when I think about how do we make sure we create equitable access, I think about what we needed, right? What me and my brother and my sister needed as we were growing up. I think if we truly want to make the dream of home ownership a reality, while we're helping adults, we also have to start at a foundational level with our children. And we have to start with financial literacy, training our children and our families right now today. What does it mean to have good credit, right? What does it mean to understand the different programs and the different opportunities are available? And we can literally do that in elementary and in high school, so that by the time our kids get to college and they are literally flooded with credit card opportunities, they know to say no to that because they'll then understand what the long lasting effects will be. I also think we have to continue to make housing available. Here at Atlanta Housing Authority, we have a goal of creating and preserving 10,000 units of affordable housing within the next 5 years. 15% of that goal is towards home ownership. And so to do that, we will continue to deploy our down payment assistance program, but we're also taking advantage of development opportunities. We have a vast amount of vacant land. We even partnered with the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership to redevelop some of that land into home ownership opportunities for families of limited and affordable means so that they can, again, have the opportunity to pursue the dream of home ownership. And so, for us, we are hyper focused, we're very intentional about using home ownership, using housing as that really tool and that bedrock to lift our families to a different level of economic self-sufficiency. But we're also very aware that it is really one of the stabilizing forces for true neighborhood transformation. And so we're intentional about making sure in any of our development opportunities that we make homeownership a reality.
Thank you so much. Home ownership credit. I'm hearing it. It's ringing in my ears over and over. So who's next?
I'll take it, Preston. If that's okay. The One of the things for Operation Hope is for us to continue to grow, to get more boots on the ground, as coaches out there providing the three pillars of what we do in home ownership, and that is to educate and to coach and to connect with those clients through our partners all around the country. We're able to provide these services free, no charge. So we educate the clients by holding group education, or we call workshops, to help them prepare them to get ready to become first-time home buyers. And then we coach them with doing a series of meetings where we talk with them about budgeting and the importance of budgeting and getting ready for that. We put that work plan together for them to get their credit together if they're in that space. And then finally, we connect them with the different resources that they're going to need throughout the home buying process. We'll connect them with banks or mortgage lenders, real estate agents, home inspectors. So we've got several connections that we actually put out to help those clients to become home ownership, to realize their dream of home ownership.
Wow, I hope everybody just heard that. Free financial literacy coaching. Free financial literacy coaching. I think that is so powerful. So, yes, if you're listening right now, if you need help with any of that, please go to Operation Hope. Man, they are ready to assist you and help you get your credit up. Who's next would like to speak on that? Sorry. Getting
I'll
excited.
follow with that. Under this administration, HUD, we have made several changes to policy to improve homeownership rates and equitable access. We're requiring lenders to strengthen their reconsideration of value processes, which is our PAVE initiatives, and it enables borrowers to request an assessment of the appraised value of their property if they believe that the appraisal was inaccurate or biased. This effort is outlined in the Biden-Harris administration's property appraisal opportunity. We are also revising our student loan debt calculations and FHA underwriting, which is a big deal because it's disproportionately affected Black and Brown individuals who tend to have a higher student debt amount. So instead of looking at the entire loan, we're just looking at the monthly payment. We updated our policies to provide greater qualifying flexibility for borrowers purchasing homes with accessory dwelling units. And that adds to the supply of affordable housing. That's also a plug for our landlord engagement for our Section 8 program for rental housing. And it also enables more home buyers to leverage the power of ADUs to enhance the wealth building that you keep hearing. And last year, HUD awarded, $41.3 million to HUD-approved housing counseling agencies, particularly those that are partnered with HBCUs and minority serving institutions. We expanded our language access resources, to remove those barriers for home ownership for those who have limited English proficiency. And we completed 1 year reducing our annual mortgage insurance premium on our loans, saving borrowers $876 a year. And lastly, these policy changes, we hope to see a positive return and outcome on over a long period of time. And we will continue to review and revise our policy to ensure that we're meeting the needs of the people that we're serving.
Thank you so much. So much. And as we wrap this impactful conversation up, could each of you share one key takeaway or piece of advice for those working towards home ownership?
Preston, sure, I can kick things off here as we wrap up. You had asked previously about what our organizational goals are, and I'll lift that up as my one key thing. Our goal is to add 3 million new Black homeowners over a 10-year period. That would get the Black homeownership rate up to over 50% for the first time in U.S. history, and we are fastidious about reaching that goal. We also have a goal of achieving at least a 50% Latino homeownership rate by the end of this year, and we're pretty much on track to reach that goal. We've already, since 2019, we've secured a 13% increase in the Black homeownership rate. So that represented the first time that the Black homeownership rate was on an upward trajectory since the year 2004. Because as we all know, the Black homeownership rate has been on a decline since the beginning of 2005. We've also helped secure an increase in the Latino homeownership rate of 7.5% since 2019. So we are headed in the right direction. We have to keep the pace. We have to keep things going. And I would encourage folks, if you think that you've encountered a fair housing challenge, contact your local fair housing organization for assistance.
Thank you, thank you. And I've also just I got some questions here for the Q and A. I figured out how to do it, so I was like, where are these questions coming from? But I have a question that says, any tips for me as a business owner, entrepreneur looking to buy a home when proof of employment is self-employed?
Mhm.
So I would say my first step would to be contact a HUD certified housing counselor, right? So they can walk you through their process, or contact Lester, but they can walk you through their process of what you need to do, the information you need to submit. But they can work with you regardless of what your situation is. So that would be my advice, is to contact a HUD certified housing counseling agency, and you can find that information on HUD.gov/counseling.
Perfect. Thank you. I have another question. I would like to hear about programs to help a community, specifically in Miami. I see every day the frustration of people who meet the credit requirements to buy a house, but the prices are extremely high. The interest rates don't help either. And even with the down payment assistance program, they are unable to obtain the property.
Mhm.
Is there any plan for this area of Florida?
Yeah. So I'm not in Miami. I'm in Atlanta, but I will tell you my first recommendation would be to go to the city of Miami. Typically, every city will have a planning department, and that planning department may have access to resources, or quite honestly, even have neighborhood transformation plans that could assist in gaining more information. I would also encourage individuals in Florida to go to their state, because every state provides resources to the different localities that could help with any level of housing assistance. And then, of course, HUD also has an office in Miami that they can seek information from as well. And if I could, Preston, I would be remiss if I just didn't give a shout out to Tiffany Cobb, who is the best deputy regional administrator with HUD, who's also over my region. The great work that we're able to do at Atlanta Housing is in part because of the leadership and the funding resources and the partnership that we have with HUD. So I would just be remiss if I did not thank her for everything that she does for our region, and specifically for the work that she does for Atlanta Housing.
That's beautiful. And how do people get information at their state and city level? And there's another question that says, once you're finished, please plug in programs one more time. You know, the programs that you guys mentioned that are
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah. It's really as simple as Googling housing programs available in Miami, right? Or housing programs available at the state level. There may be a little level of research. I'm not as familiar with that area, but I would dare say, again, go to the city's website first, then to the state website, or just Google can be your friend in Googling for that information.
Yeah, and
All
I would
right.
add to
Yep.
that as well quickly. It just, yeah, like Terry Lee said, just go to Miami-Dade Community Planning Department. I am actually the acting Miami Field Office Director for HUD at the moment, so you can feel free to contact me as well. And we can and certainly help you try to get some information regarding HUD programs in Miami, as well as Miami-Dade County, who we have a great relationship with.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
and
so much.
Preston, I
Okay.
would be remiss if I didn't tell people to please visit the website of HOPE. That's Homeowners Home Opportunities Made Equal in Miami. They do have housing programs, and they are a HUD partner too.
Powerful. Well, I just want to wrap up this conversation. Thank you all so much for giving us your wisdom and tools. And I'm sure this gave everyone so much hope. So thank you again. I definitely enjoyed this session. I thought it was just so powerful. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Preston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Preston.
And also listen more to the dialogues through the Hope Global Forums. The Dialogues podcast features exclusive conversations from 10 years of dialogues with past presidents, leaders from tech, business, sports, entertainment, and government. So listen and subscribe on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right. So I hope you guys enjoy that. I definitely had a fair share of listening to John Hope Bryant's interviews and all the great things he's doing. And like the Hope Global Forum experience, request an invite to this year's 10th anniversary. Come on, y'all. 10th anniversary. Y'all better make it. Hope Global Forum's annual meeting in Atlanta, Georgia. I actually went to that last conference. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, it was amazing. They had some of the best speakers, and I was just so inspired, even just to hear so much from John Hope Bryant. So it was just super powerful. So anyway, I want to let you guys know again. Sign up for Operation Hope Ownership Coaching Program. Make sure y'all sign up right now. You're not gonna want to miss it. Hope Ownership Program. Get all your literacy tools. So thank you guys so much. This is Preston Pollard. I'm so excited. I got so much wisdom from y'all, and this is just such a blessing. Thank you guys. Thank you for watching. And don't forget home ownership and keep your credit good. All right, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.